We're going to be doing this panel talking about what are some of the both benefits and obstacles, as well as the things we're seeing as a community around OpenStack adoption in enterprise. And we've got a great panel to lead us. So I'm going to actually do intros for the panel just for the sake of time. So I'll start with myself. My name is Ken Hui, and I am currently Director of Technical Marketing at Platform 9. And I will be moderating this session. And then, oops, did it just go out? Okay. So let me introduce from this side. Sean Roberts is currently VP of Development at a new startup called Conda that's focused on networking for OpenStack. And then on this side, Control C. Alan. I'm trying to see the titles. Alan, actually, do you want to just give your title, and maybe that's the best way to do it. Give you your title and company.
Sure. So my name is Alan Clark. I work for SUSE, directing our involvement in the industry standards. I'm also the chairman of the board for OpenStack.
Hey, I'm Mark McLoughlin. I'm technical director of OpenStack at Red Hat and also on the OpenStack Foundation board.
Arturo Suarez, work on the product strategy team at Canonical, former founder of StackOps, which was the first distribution of OpenStack, not the ones that Jesse put up on the stage. But it was on the other side of the ocean, so I guess you guys are going to hear about it. I'm not sure.
I'm Jesse. And I'm Morgan.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for being on this panel. So I'm going to jump right into it. There's a few questions we want to try to get the panel to address. And the first question we want to ask is, today, what are the business drivers and use cases that you're seeing for enterprise adoption? And particularly, want to talk about, have you talked about what are the, again, what are the main use cases that enterprises are using OpenStack for today, and what are the primary delivery or consumption models that they are using? So anyone can jump in.
Sure, yeah, I can go first. In terms of business drivers and use cases, I think we've actually had a really great introduction here this morning. Like Jonathan covered a lot of that very well today in terms of really focusing on what people are getting out of OpenStack, and it's all about that agility. It's all about everyone's being disrupted, everyone's being beat, as Jesse said. And it's all about how do you get that agility into your business. It's not about the technology itself. It's how can you deliver real business to business value to your users. So we're seeing that across pretty much every vertical you can think of. You're seeing it in financial, insurance, healthcare. It's really across it's really across all industries, and I think that's really exciting. It's not some vertically focused product we built here. This is a platform for innovation across the entire industry, and it's really great to see, I guess, the entire industry kind of almost standardizing it as a platform for their innovation. Oh, sorry. I'm going to pass the mic on anyway.
All right. 2 words, money and time, right? The motivators are we want to save money. These are the initial motivators. We want to save money, and our people are saturated doing maintenance and whatever. We want to save time so we can do more innovative and interesting things. So just add to Mark's comments.
Sure, and I can even refine it down more. My company was founded, Conda, specifically for the use case of making Neutron easier to use and making it more reliable. So we focus on the life cycle of Neutron. So there's a lot of companies that are represented in this room that are focused on a lot of use cases. There's some that are focused on just a couple, so we can be more successful. So,
okay.
This gentleman had a question. Did you want to?
I had a question. Do you include healthcare in that? Because healthcare is very reluctant to go to the cloud. Or people related.
Repeat the question. Yeah, I guess you're picking up on me mentioning healthcare as one of the verticals I mentioned. And actually, it was the first one that came to mind because I'm thinking of a healthcare customer we're working with this morning. It's running OpenStack and migrating some of its applications to that cloud today. So very much we are seeing in that industry it being adopted, and those regulation barriers being addressed and being dealt with.
Great, thank you. So before we jump to this side, just kind of maybe to change the question a little bit. One of the criticisms of OpenStack is that it seems to be only used. People would say it is only being used in dev test environments. No one's actually using it for critical applications. So, what are some of the production use cases, if any, that you're seeing?
Well, I don't think anybody in this room thinks that's true. Anybody out there, they don't think that's true. All the Jesse and the rest of the analysts, they don't think that's true either, right? So it keeps us all busy, and that means it's in production. This is 5 years into the technology. It is in production. Use cases, you get a couple of very good keynotes every 6 months on the OpenStack Design Summits, and you will get plenty of use cases here. As Mark mentioned, it's a cross-industry. Anybody's doing it. Even healthcare is doing it with all the data restrictions. They might not go to the managed cloud service thing, right, because of their say, legal constraints. But they're definitely looking into OpenStack. Not looking into OpenStack, doing OpenStack already, right? So that is clear. One of the things that drives them into that, and is part of the key message of OpenStack, is that the ability to choose how you want to run OpenStack. So the ability to choose how you want to consume it, the ability to choose the technology, the underlying technology, all the software-defined storage, software-defined network, the different hypervisors, right? So it is. I mean, it's to enumerate a couple of use cases. It'd be. I mean, we used to do that 4 years ago, right? When Korea Telecom was or Mercado Libre was the super users were 5 or 6. Now you have, well, we have banks, we have insurance, we have healthcare, we have plenty of that.
Okay. Anyone else? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reality is that everybody starts with dev test, and some people end with dev tests, and most people take it all the way to production, and that's the piece of the story that's often missed. So all of our customers have often started, I think every single customer starts with a dev test environment, because that's how you try something new. And once you're comfortable that it works, you move it into production. By far and large, the workloads that we're seeing are predominantly web applications. They're next generation web technologies. We're not seeing lift and shift. We're not seeing those legacy applications sit on top of these technologies. And quite often, the conversations that we have with our customers are, does it make economic sense to spend the effort to do that lift and shift? Or does it make economic sense to get an environment that can stand alongside that existing investment and be a platform and that can integrate with that existing investment as you build your next generation technologies?
I'd say that very much the same thing. And you have to look at what Jesse said there, but you have to also look at all of the people that have come out. You've got every 6 months, as stated, you've got these giant groups of people who've come out and said, yeah, we use this for everything. I mean, you've started with the scientific community, clearly. CERN was involved with that. You've had Walmart, you've had, I believe, let's see, who else? BMW, Disney. I mean, all these people have come out and said that they use it and move it beyond dev test. But yeah, you always start dev test. And you're seeing, for every one of the giant customers that do this, giant deployers that do this, whether they're consuming a managed offering or using something they rolled in-house, you're going to have 2 or 3, maybe 10 or 20 smaller deployments that happen.
And just anecdotally, I think one of the most interesting things I've experienced being 2 months into IBM is the number and the size of the banks and the financial institutions and the healthcare organizations that IBM is engaged with and who are approaching IBM to look for these types of solutions. So it's not just technology companies. It is all these regulated industries, and they are figuring out how to make that leap and to be compliant using these next generation technologies.
Okay. So, and what are these enterprises that are looking at OpenStack? What are the benefits that are driving them, that they potentially see that are driving them towards looking at OpenStack or actually even deploying OpenStack?
So I'll start. I think the biggest piece that I've seen, the biggest conversation driver that I've seen, is this notion of open APIs. And so everybody in every one of these organizations has experience with Oracle, and has experiences with SAP, and has experiences with these large, I think, software platforms, and have become accustomed to this notion of lock-in. And Amazon was first, and they built the most successful platform that any of the, and Azure or Google have followed, but those APIs are proprietary APIs, and organizations become concerned about lock-in. So I've built an application that ties into Lambda and uses a bunch of their Amazon services. Suppose that doesn't work for me in the future. What do I do now? I've got to re-architect everything. With OpenStack, I can get a flexibility that I don't have available to me in public clouds today. So I can go purchase public clouds. There are vendors out there that sell that. I can purchase private clouds in a hosted model or on premises. And that gives me portability of workload in the future. So it's future-proofing to some extent.
Yep, for me, I think it's about abstraction, right? What OpenStack gives you is that abstraction, that separation between the concern of operating your IT infrastructure and what your developers are doing on top of that. So again, it's related to the API point, I guess, but it's that separations of concerns, I think, really allows the business to go faster and allows IT to stop being the kind of the no guys in the room. Sorry, you've got a question for me again?
No, for everyone. So, how portable? Let's say that I make a big investment in IAM or something like that in one provider, OpenStack, and then that company goes down because many companies go down. Okay, now I'm stuck. How do I move to the other one? Is it easy? Is it feasible? Or it's going to be a careful again?
Okay, so I think the question is portability? I would put it like, is portability an actual real benefit today, or is this something or is it just marketing?
So let me switch hats and take my vendor hat off. This is one area that is very, very high interest to us as a community, and that's interoperability. And so we started an effort. John and Mark and all of us have put a ton of effort in this. It's called DevCore, defining what's core, defining those interfaces so that you don't have that lock-in. Second level of that we announced at Vancouver is the interoperability between authentication and authorization. And so we're working very hard to make sure we don't have that lock-in. Again, it goes back to those open interfaces, but it also goes into certifying those vendors that they are using those interfaces so that we do have that mobility in that interoperability.
So I think the short answer I would say is that it is painful to move today. But the key that is different is that there's not one commercial entity that owns those APIs. So moving anything anywhere is hard. Data has gravity, and the actual transmission times are long, and that experience can be painful. But because there is a standard, and that standard continues to evolve, and the work that is happening on RefStack and DevCore is critical to that going forward, we'll start to see more consistency there. We'll never be to a point where, I don't think we'll ever be to a point where you'll just be able to take things from one vendor and point them immediately to different, because of the flexibility of OpenStack and all the different implementations that occur underneath. But because those APIs are not controlled by one single vendor, I think that gives us a lot of power.
I think that you're going to with that pain, with the pain that goes along with that, and the flexibility. You're also seeing projects and libraries that are popping up. There's one that's currently under work called Shade, and it is specifically designed to help ease the transition between multiple deployments that are deployed slightly differently, that cause that little bit of that bit of pain when you're trying to pick up your application, move from one to another. So you're going to see an ecosystem build around helping with that as well as we move forward. But it's going to become, that ecosystem is going to hopefully stay relatively small due to the interoperability, DevCore, RefStack, that type of stuff, which is again extremely important.
So I can add what my company and the project that we develop is specifically around the interoperability of Neutron. So essentially, we're an implementation of that. And as we go forward, our intention is to have a bunch of drivers, network drivers that would run on top of our state machine, and which would run on top of Neutron. So it totally abstracts everything underneath it as well as everything on top of it. So what we're doing is a good implementation of that abstraction and that interoperability, so that customers can pick anything underneath and anything above. So, but as they're saying, that's overall the intent of almost all the projects is interoperability, and this is just yet another example of somebody trying to do that, or doing that, I should say.
Okay, right. So let's move on a little bit. I know. So we've talked quite a bit about the benefits of and why enterprises are looking at OpenStack today. What would you say are the challenges of either why OpenStack deployments are not failing in some cases, or why is it actually not moving along as quickly as we would like?
Take this one. There's we start to see as we move into the past the phase of early adopters, right? Some issues with the design, not the best design of a cloud is starting to pay now as a non-successful cloud, right? So the challenge of getting people trained, getting people understanding how a good design is going to last, this thing is going to stay. As Jesse said, deployment was the first challenge. We are way past that. Now the challenge is on how to keep that running during the next 10 years in your data center with the upgrades, etc. Right? So that is something that we trying to keep that into your data center, trying to keep it running and operated is one of the challenges. For that, we need to improve on our training ability. There's a scarce resources of OpenStack out there, and when you look at the salary of what OpenStack guys are making, you notice it's a highly demanded skill set. We need to improve that. That's on the basic level, and then of course keeping that simple and easy to transition. Right? OpenStack guarantees innovation. We just need to make that innovation in place seamlessly. Right? Put it in the market for non-OpenStack vendors in a seamless manner. I think that's the main challenge.
Okay. Anyone else? What challenges are you hearing or seeing?
Yeah, funnily enough, I think one of the big challenges for OpenStack is also one of its strengths. So we've built an amazing ecosystem, right? Like it's a very flexible platform, lots of plugins, lots of different vendor options, an amazing ecosystem, but really, really difficult for someone to make sense of. So Nick, you're being picked on today as really, the good example customer in the room. You did a big POC with lots of different vendors involved, and it's, it's really difficult to make those kind of early choices, and as Arturo said, those choices stay with you for a long time. So I think many people adopting OpenStack really are looking for kind of trusted advisors to kind of help them make those decisions, and they're important decisions.
Yeah, I'd like to briefly plug the OpenStack Foundation certification effort. So right now, they're going on to create the testing standards that would begin the process of building out the training regimens across the entire ecosystem. So there are certainly companies that are training on OpenStack right now. That a lot of them are represented in this room. But there hasn't been a broad set of standards the foundation could get behind that would say that this means this quality. And so that effort's going on right now. My hope is that over time we'll see the value of I'll just make up a term, like an OpenStack architect that would be roughly equivalent to an HR manager like a CCIE is today. We don't see that right now, but my hope is over the next year, maybe as soon as the next year, we'll start seeing that so that people outside of our industry can start understanding who is an OpenStack expert, bring them in, and be that trusted advisor that we're talking about.
Anyone else? Other challenges that you're seeing or hearing from enterprise customers?
I guess we had a question or comment. I was going to add another flavor to it, but go ahead.
Yep.
So my question is, do you see OpenStack and other software defines solutions in the death of the normal systems administrator and moving more towards DevOps and the full stack type of individuals, or?
So the question was, are we seeing OpenStack causing the death of the administrator and adopting new models like DevOps? So that's kind of where I was going to head with my comment. As we're moving into these large enterprise deployments, one of the things that is kind of a barrier is culture. And there's a couple different things here. One, the traditional departments are siloed, right? You've got, particularly in a large enterprise, you've got security folks, you've got database folks, you've got networking folks, and they traditionally haven't had the best communication channels. And so, the things like DevOps are trying to overcome these barriers. So it's education, as Sean was talking about, and it's cultural. It has less to do with technology, has more with changing the culture.
So my company have been in, actually before I started with Aconda, when I was at Yahoo, at VMware, a lot of, actually I was a consultant before that, actually doing networking consulting. So this is by far the transition from traditional 6 to 12 month implementation cycles, usually driven by a vendor. So a vendor would, company would pick a couple of preferred vendors, and they'd run on their cycle when they came out with new products. Now we're with OpenStack and Agile infrastructure. We're talking about cutting that period of implementation down to sometimes weeks or even days for people, and that terrifies a lot of people because that means constant change. Not to mention getting the network engineers and the sysadmins and the guys doing actual frontline production operations to all work together and have overlap of skills. We're talking about a completely new world. So just the customers that I'm talking to today, or make it even more period, over the last 3 months, there's a certain number of them that are going through and training their network engineers to not only understand what DevOps means, but actually teaching them Python. That's a huge change. So, so that's happening, and I think that's painful for almost everyone to go through that transition.
But but not to scare you away, there's a plus side to that, and I apologize. I think hopefully I'm not. There's a plus side, right? And this goes back to why people are adopting. And it's because they're able to produce better services, right? They're becoming, essentially, they're becoming a service provider to the lines of business. So they're increasing their value to those companies and to the people they serve. So it's not just a burden of having to learn new things and change models, but it's adapting to become a more integral part of the business.
You want this side? Okay, so let me. We're going to actually end with the last question, and I want everyone on the panel to kind of look ahead, 3 to 5 years, and kind of where OpenStack may be at that time, particularly in enterprise. And I know we don't have a benevolent dictator in OpenStack, and don't plan to have one. But if you could be the OpenStack benevolent dictator, what would be on your wish list of things you would like to see happen in the next few years to make OpenStack widely adopted in the enterprise?
Well, funnily enough, Linus was interviewed yesterday as the benevolent dictator for Linux, and he refused to even look beyond next week, I think. No, for me, I think 3 to 5 years from now, the installation, deployment, operations, upgrades problem needs to be it's not a problem anymore, particularly at the kind of medium scale size. Small to medium sized businesses should be able to take in OpenStack, use it to deliver business value, and for operating it to not be a concern. Whether they outsource it, as Jesse made the case for, or whether they're doing that themselves. So for me, that's the big wish list.
Okay.
I would say scale and certification of scale. So everybody that's doing this today is doing proof of concepts. They're doing 3 servers or a rack of gear. What does it look like when it's running in 40 racks or 100 racks or 500 or 1,000 or 20,000 racks? And I think there are few companies that get to that ultimate scale, but proving that it works, that's one of the biggest barriers we hit in conversations today. It's like, great, we'll do this initial implementation, but how do we know it's going to work when we add 5, 10, 20, 50 racks?
Coming back to what he demanded, right? That portability of workloads, right? So we're looking into moving a little bit up the stack, right? We need to keep that OpenStack bit on the infrastructure layer steady and working and et cetera, but also able to talk to other places where your workloads are going to be running, whether those are in Amazon or in VMware, the non-OpenStack part of VMware, or in bare metal or somewhere else, right? The importance will go, and is starting to get there, from the pure infrastructure, how to orchestrate that into the platform, whatever there is, or the software you're running on that platform, right? So the ability for a company to have different options on where to deploy that. This importance also there of the quality of service. Like, I would like to see, it was a big achievement to get 99.996 for Yahoo, as Mark said. We want to challenge the 5 nines, the 6 nines. Some of the telcos are looking at, some of the financial institutions are looking at. We want to challenge that. We want to accomplish that with OpenStack.
Okay, others?
So if I can't remember who put up the slide, but it's Mark Collier's original slide where you show We got the packages today, right, the Nova and Keystone and so forth that are widely adopted. But if you look at the packages that were down in the lower left-hand corner, those are the future. And those packages are the services that we're trying to provide through OpenStack. So this is where you get the databases and the big data and so forth. And really the ultimate point there is those services are building a relationship with your customers, okay? So we see that through the, and it's a long discussion, but really the bottom line is 3 to 5 years, we're going to be focused on building the relationship. You're going to be focused on building that relationship with your customers at a new level.
Okay, great, thanks. Anyone else before we end?
So the OpenStack mission, if I had to parse it and just pick out a couple of things in the OpenStack mission, one of the things is massively scalable, and other is easy to implement. I believe I'm paraphrasing that correctly. So we made a lot of progress in those as a community. Against those, we have some ways to go on those things. I think the way that we get successful is tighter integration with the product management and all the companies that are supporting OpenStack through development, with the actual development management, more specifically the project management in OpenStack. That's better than it was 2 years ago. It could be made so much better. There's an effort right now within OpenStack to the product management team. It's abbreviated to be the product team, is working towards tightening that up even more. So my hope is over the next 5 years, there'll be like a steady line of communication, not only through the operators to the developers, but also through product management to the developers. So.
Okay, great. So, anyone else? If not, I want to thank this great panel for giving us time and sharing their insights and wisdom with us. And thank you all for listening and participating. So, hope you enjoy your lunch and the rest of the OpenStack Day Seattle. Thank you.
Before we break.